Hello, this is Andrine, a Jewish American priestess, and we are finally in the month of Elul, which is the last month of the Hebrew calendar. It's a month of preparation during which we are getting ourselves ready for returning to our best self at the high holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And I'm going to offer a reading today. We're going to do 3 different readings. They're just going to be 3 Hebrew readings. And we're going to do that by choosing from 3 different objects. And I'm going to start with the first object is this small knife. And I'll show you what it looks like. It's a handmade knife. It's got a leather case and it is small, wooden handle and a hand sharpened blade. So that's object number 1. Object number 2 is this Osprey Feather that I found at a lake this summer. And I know it's an Osprey Feather because we watched the osprey diving. It's quite thick. Osprey Feather is number 2 as a choice. And number 3 is this Porcupine Quill. It was a gift to me by one of my offspring. So take a moment to decide which of these 3 objects is appealing to you. Number 1 is the knife, number 2 is the Osprey Feather, and number 3 is the Porcupine Quill. I'll put the timestamps down below, and I will see you in your separate readings. Welcome, number 1. This is the object that you've chosen. Again, it's a handmade, hand-fashioned knife with a wooden handle and a metal blade, hand sharpened, and this very small hilt. You can see it's very small. This knife was given to me by my brother very long time ago, and I recently pulled it out of storage when I was searching for something and ran across it, and I've had it on my altar ever since as a sort of as a token to Lilith, who I have been working with a bit recently. So this knife is representative of protection and guarding, cutting out things that are no longer necessary in your life, perhaps. And first thing we're going to do in this reading is we're going to pull out a deck, and I have this bowl of slips of paper, which each of them has a name of a deck on it. So the way I'm going to do this is pull out a slip of paper with the deck on it, and then find that deck, and then we'll pull one card from that deck. So let's see which deck this knife wants today. Okay, this is the one, and the deck is the DreamTime reading cards. All right, let me go grab those and I'll be right back. All right, here we have them, the DreamTime reading cards by Bowen. They are about spirit nature from Australia. So let me take out the deck. Put this back in the bowl. Okay, let me shuffle these up. These are kind of large, so see if I can do this with my small hands. See which card wants to give us a little guidance into your reading today for this month of Elul, our month of preparation for return to ourselves. And I see this card sticking out. And the card that we have today is number 34, the Sun, fertility. It's a beautiful card. The sun is at this time of year waning as the summer begins to close itself down, at least in this part of the world. In Australia, of course, it's just coming into its power. Let's read a little bit about the sun in this book. The sun, fertility. In some Aboriginal cultural groups, the sun, rather than being associated with masculinity, is described as female. The sun was considered a great mother, giver of life and warmth and nourisher of the earth. Often these groups were matrilineal societies where knowledge was passed down from mothers and aunts to the next generation. The sun is associated with warmth and nurturing, the fertile womb and the mother, the one who births new life. The sun promises a second chance and is a warning reminder that tomorrow is another day. A warming reminder, sorry, I read it as warming reminder that tomorrow is another day. In the morning, the sun will rise and a brand new day will begin, full of potential and warmth. Australia is a harsh continent and often affected by long periods of drought. At its most dangerous, the sun can burn, dry out, and kill livestock and leave the landscape barren. This is a reminder that it is not possible to live continuously in the light and warmth. You must also spend time in darkness of night and cooling retreat of the shade. Often, the best times to benefit from the sun are to connect with it at sunrise and sunset. These times when the sky glows with color are very special, a very special time for personal reflection and promise. And I love that the chime went off in the middle of that reading. That chime on my phone is this random chime that comes in to remind me that the divine is present here. So with the sun here and the fertility symbol, the nurturing mother, the symbol of the divine, is often used as the sun in many cultures. And I love that it's also a reminder that we cannot live in the sun entirely, that we do have to go back and forth between sun and darkness in order to survive the harsh, direct rays of the sun. So for this month of Elul, as we are taking time to contemplate what we need, it may be important to focus on where in our lives is the sun showing up and granting fertility and harvest at this time of year, and where in our lives do we need to seek out some darkness, cool shade and shadow work itself possibly. And we'll use that knife to cut through any blockages and misunderstandings and to protect ourselves from anything that might come our way in a negative fashion. So now we're going to pull out 3 Hebrunes. And the one at the top is representing what we have right now. We have the letter Tzadi. The center is the challenge or the fear in the situation. We have the letter Chet. Interesting. And at the bottom are advice or outcome. Lamed, very nice. So at the top of our reading, let me zoom in a little bit so we can see these letters a little better. Okay, so at the very top of our reading we have the letter Tzadi. And Tzadi is the letter that represents the word justice, tzedek, or tzaddik, who is a righteous person. And this is what's happening right now. We're seeking justice. We're looking for justice. We are finding ourselves in a place of seeking righteousness. That's the whole point of the month of Elul, is to sit within ourselves, to become a tzaddik, so that we can find our way toward justice. And you'll notice, if you know anything about the Hebrew letters, that this letter is composed of two other letters. You can see, if I cover up the upper right, you get the letter Nun, and it's sort of bent over. It's already a bent letter, but it's particularly bent. And then if we cover up the Nun, we get the letter Yud. So those two letters together, Nun representing that which is bowed over and humble, and Yud, which is the seed. It's the letter that's affiliated with the month of Elul. It's about starting something new, and it's also about the potential for change. It's the first letter of the divine name. So a lot of times Yud is representative of the divine name, particularly when there's two Yuds together. And of course, if you cover up the bottom, that's what we have, two Yuds. Yud Yud, it often represents the name of the divine, the Yud He Vav He, and or the name Adonai, which is often translated as Lord, but that one who watches over us. So if we look at it in that way, if we look at Tzadi in that way, we have this humility, and we have divinity at the back or on the back, and the divine above this possible humility. So when we're seeking justice, or we're seeking to be righteous, right now it's a time of going into humility and trusting that divinity is there, trusting that divinity has our back. Right now, as we move forward into this month of Elul, as we move forward toward our time of return, to returning to our best self, returning to the righteousness of ourself. So that's where we are right now in this reading. In the center of the reading, we have the letter Chet. And I said it's interesting when we pull this out because Chet is the first letter of the word Chai, which means life. And again, this is the position of the fear or challenge. So we have this fear or challenge about life. How are we getting through life? How are we finding ourselves written in the book of life, if you will, because that's something that happens during high holidays. Is this story about the book of life and the book of death, and the book of the righteous and the book of the not righteous. How do we find our way to that book of life? But Chet is also the first letter of the word Choshek, which means darkness. And when we're speaking about the sun here and the idea of fertility and the need to go into darkness so that we don't get burnt out, this is the challenge here. How do we find life and darkness and the balance of those two in our search for righteousness, in our journey toward our highest self? So that's our fear or challenge right now, the letter Chet. And Chet is also the number 8 in Gematria, so it represents the infinity loop. It represents that which is one more than the number of days of creation, which is 7, and that is the infinite. So the ongoing of life. After we've finished our creation, after we've finished our fertility, what then? So we may have a moment of fertility here with the sun. We may have a feeling of righteousness or justice, but the fear is, how do we move forward? How do we face our darkness and grasp the essence of life as we move into the next phase of things, after we've finished that creation, after we've finished the 7 days of creation, we step forward then into the rest of life, and that can be challenging, it can be a fear. And the outcome in this reading is the letter Lamed. And the letter Lamed is the letter that begins the word Lev, which means heart. It represents the planting of oneself in the earth, like a root that comes down at the bottom here, and the sprout that comes up toward the heavens. So when we're sitting with this right now, How do we move forward toward heart or with heart? Our advice is to listen to our heart, to be able to discern. The Lamed also represents the digestive system in the body, the intestines specifically. So there's this sense of taking things in and discerning what is useful and what needs to be discarded. How do we do that? How do we listen to our heart mind in such a way that we can discern what is useful for us to keep and what we can let go? Lamed is the first letter of the words limud v'lamed, which means teaching and learning. So we're taking in our lessons and we are learning from them and releasing what is no longer useful or what doesn't apply to us. So discernment seems to be the advice and the outcome here. So as we're heading toward this time of return, this time of righteousness, when we're finding ourselves in humility, trusting that divinity is here at our back, sort of like the sun up in the sky above us as we are being humble in this time. We have to face our darkness. We have to figure out how to move forward into life after creation has come into being, after this fertility, after the sun has shone down upon us. How do we step forward? How do we use our darkness to create more life as we step forward? And the answer seems to be, listen to your heart. Listen and learn. Teach also. Learn something and then teach it back. That's one of the best ways to learn. To take things in, discern what is useful and what should be discarded. Digest that information and come together with heart. Plant yourself firmly in the earth and reach up toward the heavens. And when you do that, you will find your way forward with fertility, with that cutting edge, with that protection that's coming to you from the divine. So for those of you who chose the knife today and consequently the sun fertility card, this has been your reading for the first part of the month of Elul. I wish you well in your journey toward righteousness and return. Hello, number 2. Those of you who chose the Osprey Feather here. Like I said, this Osprey Feather is a feather I found this summer when I was camping up on the mountain, and we saw these magnificent birds who were flying over the water and then diving in and catching fish. And first we thought they were eagles, but the way they dove, it became very clear they were osprey. And we found this feather on the beach, and it's quite, like I said, quite robust. I love how thick and powerful it is. And so it's been sitting on my altar since then. So it represents power and nourishment and the ability to, observe from up on high and then use that power to dive underneath the surface to find what it is you need to nourish you. So that's the first message I'm getting for those of you who chose the Osprey Feather, is this idea of seeing your way forward, being able to go beneath the surface to find what you need, and then coming back out and eating that, to ingest that, whatever it might be. So let's set our Osprey Feather up above, and we're going to take this bowl of slips of paper that have all the decks that I own on it, and we're going to shuffle that up and find a deck. And when we find that deck, we're going to pull one card to guide us further into your reading about this month of return, this month of transformation. Okay, this is our got 2 here. Let me pull this one. All right, let's see what we have. We have the White Light Oracle. All right, let me go grab that and I'll be right back. All right, here we have the White Light Oracle by Alana Fairchild. Enter the luminous heart of the sacred. Beautiful deck. was gifted to me by my partner for my birthday this year. And let's take these cards and see what wants to come out today for you who have chosen the Osprey Feather. They're quite large cards, so let me give it a shuffle here. Okay, there's your card. It wants to jump right out. I don't know if you notice, this is a white wolf on the back of each of the cards. And actually, if you, I don't know if you can see this in the video, but I actually have a white wolf on my altar here because that's one of my animal ancestors. All right, let's see what this White Light Oracle, Osprey Feather, and White Wolf have to offer you today. And we have number 40, it's the Sovereign Queen Maeve. Sovereign Queen Maeve. Let's see what the book says about her. Sovereign Queen Maeve. She says, value what is sacred to you by protecting it from interference, even that which may be well-intentioned. Be compassionate, but set firm boundaries. You are going to triumph over a negative situation. It will take courage, but you have more than enough inner strength and resourcefulness and boldness to accomplish what you wish to attain. Do not give up. You have the ability to connect with higher worlds, so open your heart and mind to the light. So Queen Maeve is goddess, warrior, and queen of the Fae, fearless guardian and protector of territory. She's wild and determined. She stimulates confidence, encouraging one not to shy away, but rather to assertively engage with life and claim your true place in the world. She encourages us to refuse to allow our sacred territory to be intruded upon by unworthy rulers, whether they be critical voices in our own mind or ego-driven interlopers. Maeve is the instinct to engage when challenged, to call on recruits and use all the inner wisdom and talent at your disposal so you can assert the light and refuse to be put down or denied your rightful place. So it's always about protection and assertiveness, sovereignty, self-possession. She's your inner queen and sovereign. So in terms of the Hebrew, I would say she represents the Shekhinah, which is the one who lives inside of us, that indwelling presence of the sovereign divine. So let's set Sovereign Queen Maeve up at the top of this altar space. Hopefully we can still see her there. And maybe I'll set her here. And the Osprey Feather. And we'll pull out 3 Hebrunes today to give us some guidance about how to prepare ourselves, maybe how to protect ourselves and see our way forward to nourish and dive deep in whatever way we need to. At the top of our reading we have the letter Lamed. At the center we have the letter Samech. And at the bottom we have the letter Chet. Okay, so these 3 letters in these 3 positions, it's interesting because some of these letters have shown up in other readings today in different positions though. At the top is the position of where are we right now. In the center is the position of what is the fear or the challenge we're dealing with in the situation. And at the bottom, what is the advice or outcome for our situation here. So starting at the top, we have the letter Lamed. You can see that the Lamed looks a little bit like a root going down into the ground and a little sprout coming up above. It's the letter that begins the word Lev, and in Hebrew that means heart or heart-mind. It's the letter that begins the words limud v'lamed, which means to learn and to teach. And it's about discerning for ourselves what is the right thing to do, how do we take in information, how do we take in food or whatever it is we're taking in, and determine what is useful and what is not. It represents the intestines in the body. So it's all about taking in sustenance, like I said, with the osprey, and determining what is nourishing and what is not. But also about information. So we are given information. We need to determine what is going to be useful for us and what we can just leave behind. And because it is the heart mind, it's an organ in our body, but it's also, in ancient Hebrew, the heart and the mind were not separate. One would use or listen with one's heart and think with one's heart, not just the mind. It wasn't about emotion and intellect. There's something more synchronistic or synergistic about the Lev. So as somebody who is taking in information and trying to determine what is useful and what is not, what is safe and what is not, because Queen Maeve here is all about safety and security. When is it important to speak? When is it important to stay silent? That's where we are right now. We're in this time of planting ourselves securely in the earth and raising our sprout up above toward the heavens in order to discern what is it that we should be doing right now? What is the information that we're taking in? How can we determine by listening with our heart mind what is the thing we need to do? What can we keep and what can we discard? And that's where we are right now in this moment of Elul. It's this time of self-examination. So we're taking all that information and sitting with ourselves, determining what part of ourselves are useful, what part is damaging, what can we let go of, and what can we keep and nourish. In the center of our reading, this is again the position of a fear or a challenge, and we have the letter Samech here. The letter Samech is a circle, and it's about cycles and seasons, sort of the wheel of the year. And here we are at this time of year where we're coming to the end of the Hebrew calendar. So we're at the end of a cycle, and that could be challenging for sure. In the Paleo Hebrew, the Samech looked like a thorn, and you can see a little thorn in the upper left corner there. And so it has this sharp edge to it. It has this feeling of protection, in fact. It's a protective thorn, like a rose has thorns, or like one might plant a thorny hedge around one's property in order to be safe. But Samech is also about being surrounded. It's about being protected. It's about being surrounded with good boundaries and surrounded with the support of other people in your life, family and friends. So our fear is that maybe we're not supported right now. And our challenge is, how do we set good boundaries? And that's what Queen Maeve is here for. She's all about setting boundaries. She's about protection. She's about knowing what is good and what is bad and what is useful and what is not and what is safe and what is dangerous. So this is the challenge here. The challenge is setting good boundaries. The challenge is coming around to the end of another year of trying to be the best that we can be, and knowing what has served us and what is not serving us, who is our friend, who is surrounding us with protection and love, and who is no longer doing that. And how do we set up good boundaries with them so that we can remain safe if we need to remain in relationship with them, or how do we let them go if that relationship has run its course? That's our fear or challenge right now. And our outcome letter or advice letter is the letter Chet. Chet is the 8th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And to that end, it represents that infinity loop that comes with the number 8. It is one more than 7. 7 are the number of days of creation. So we have the letter Chet here saying the infinite is here for us, that we are in this moment stepping off after our 7 days of creation into the rest of life. Chet is the letter that begins the word Chai, which means life. So how do we find our life here? This is the challenge. This is the advice, is find our way into life. Find our way stepping into the infinite at this time. Chet is the letter that begins the word Choshek as well. Choshek meaning darkness. And Choshek in the Torah is the first word that starts with the letter Chet. So it's an important word. And it's not about things that are bad. Darkness doesn't mean badness. It just means going deep, going underneath the surface to find out. Sometimes we need to face those shadows in order to set up good boundaries, for instance. We need to face the darkness in order to be ready to step into the light. So our advice here is to find our way forward into living our lives fully, stepping off from the end of a creation into the infinite, into the next iteration of things, and to face our shadow self, to face the darkness, and know that we are protected, that it's okay to face the darkness, it's okay to say the thing that maybe people don't necessarily want to hear, that we have backup, that the Shekhinah is here, the Queen Maeve of our self, who's prodding us inwardly to say the thing that needs to be said, to protect ourselves, to set up those good boundaries, to listen and discern with our heart mind. So for those of you who chose the Osprey Feather and subsequently the Queen Maeve card, listen to your inner knowing. Listen to your heart mind. Find a way to discern what is useful and what is not. Let go of that isn't useful and hold on to the important things that will nourish you, like the osprey. Set up good protective boundaries, even if it's a challenge, even if it's a fear that you're not protected or surrounded with love. Know that you have the inner guidance to set up that protection for yourself. That you know it, you have inner knowing with the Lamed. And out of that, you will step into life. You will step into, maybe in through the darkness, or use your darkness, use your shadow self to find a way into the infinite, into life. And that's going to be your journey this month for Elul. So for those of you who chose the Osprey Feather, this has been your reading. I hope that you have a very meaningful time of returning to yourself, discerning what you need to discern, setting up your boundaries, and finding your life. And we will see you here next time. Hello, those of you who chose number 3, the Porcupine Quill. This is a beautiful quill. I love that it's striped like this. And it's very sharp on the ends, as most quills are. You can hear my chime going off saying that the divine is here with us for this reading. The porcupine is an amazing animal. It's quite large and rather passive and peaceful, but it has these incredibly important and protective spikes. And they only use them in defense. They are not an animal that attacks. So that's an important piece of your reading today, is it's important to protect yourself, but not attack, particularly as we come into this month of Elul, when we are returning to ourselves. Find our softness and our innocence, our porcupine selves, but make sure that we are protected as need be. And we're going to take this bowl of slips of paper and have the names of the decks on them and shuffle that up and find a deck. And we're going to take one card today from a deck. There's one that just jumped right out. And we'll see what other further guidance we have for you. And you've got the Art Oracle, so those are an interesting deck. Let me go grab those. I'll be right back. All right, here's the Art Oracles. It is a deck of artists that have creative and inspirations for us. So let's see what we have for you from the Art Oracles deck. This was a gift to me some years ago. Let's see here. Let's shuffle these up and pull an artist and find out what they have for you today. Which artist wants to speak to you about your journey this month in Elul back to yourself? The returning of ourselves at the end of this Hebrew year. And there's our card. All right, let's see who we have here. We have Sophie Kala. And the card itself shows a woman asleep in a bed with a sleep mask. The subtitle is The Sleeper. It says, "Put on a good show for the surveillance cameras. Distance makes the heart break stronger. Invade neighboring states of privacy." Okay, let's read a little bit about her in the book as well. Sophie Kala. So your oracle says Sophie Kala's media includes photography, text, video, voyeurism, oversharing, and unlawful invasion of privacy. In one of her first projects, The Sleepers, she found 23 people to sleep continuously in her bed in consecutive 8-hour sessions that included them being photographed and interrogated. For The Shadow, 1981, she had her mother hire a private detective who surreptitiously followed her, unaware that she was aware. In Address Book, 1983, Kala called strangers from a found address book asking about its owner and publishing the transcripts as part of an imagined portrait of the man, who found out and freaked out. And for her 2007 Venice Biennial exhibition, Take Care of Yourself, Kala asked 107 women to interpret a breakup letter she received. The prosecution rests. So, your oracle today seems to be about maybe taking the ordinary and making it extraordinary. Sleep, which is a normal function, but putting it on show as an art piece. About looking at a breakup letter and having others interpret it for you, reaching out to strangers and finding things out about another stranger. Interesting artist. So we're going to put Sophie up here at the top along with our Porcupine Quill, and we'll pull out some letters to see what further messages we have for you in this month of Elul. At the top, we have the letter Aleph. In the center, we have the letter Gimel. And at the bottom, we have the letter Yud. All right, so these three letters represent different aspects of your reading this month. The top letter is where we are right now. The center letter is what is our fear or challenge for the month. And the bottom letter is our advice or outcome. So starting at the top, we have the letter Aleph, and Aleph is, of course, the first letter of the alphabet. It's the number 1. And so where we are right now is we are at 1. We are at the beginning. We're at the beginning of this transition where we are returning to ourselves. And Aleph is representative of a crossroads. You can see that it sort of looks like a crossroads. So we're at this liminal space where we're having to decide what direction to go. Are we moving to the top or the bottom? Are we moving left or right? We have to make a decision, and that's clear, and that's important. That's an important part of Elul, is deciding whether we're going to contain and retain old habits, whether we're going to try to forgive ourselves and others, whether we're going to make ourselves right with the divine, and how we're going to do that. So there is a bit of a crossroads decision-making process that happens in this month. It begins most of the names of the divine in Torah. So the word El, which means God or goddess, El Elyon, the God Most High, Elohim, the plural name of the divine, Adonai, which is translated as Lord, but is often substituted for the 4-letter tetragrammaton. But it also begins the word Adam, which means human, and Adama, which means mud. So it's got all of these different factors in it. It's got that separation of above and below, and the unity and also the division between heaven and earth. And with regards to that and your porcupine and Sophie Kala, we've got these contradictions almost, like a balancing of what is private and what is public, what is art and what is mundane, what, in the case of the porcupine, is protective and what is innocence. Like, how do we discern? And so there's, right now, this discerning, this beginning of a discernment that's going on. The other thing that comes up with Aleph is it's the mother letter of air. In the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation, each of the letters has a foundation or transformation to it. And there are 3 mother letters, Aleph being the first mother letter, the mother letter of air. Air, which is this substance that's been given to us as breath, that gives us the ability to exist. Like, without air, we could not live on this planet or really anywhere the way we're set up right now physiologically. So it's this gift of the divine. It's this exchange that we have between us and the plants. How do we tap into air? We bring it into our bodies and we exhale it out. We exhale out something that then the trees can use to transform themselves into substance, which then becomes wood and oxygen for us to breathe. So there's this transformation that happens here with the Aleph as well. It's representative of the chest and the body, that, again, liminal space between the heat of summer and the wet, cold of winter. So this, and between the head and the belly, it's this chest area which contains the lungs, of course, for air, but also the heart. So a lot of discernment going on right now. Is it time to attack? Is it okay to cross a boundary and, in the form of this artist, maybe break what is normally an unspoken agreement about what is private and what is public, and what is, again, mundane and what is art? That's where we are right now, is we're trying to discern, and we are at the number 1. And the number 1, again, is the number 1 that represents the oneness of the divine. When we move into the second letter, the letter which represents our fear or challenge, we have the letter Gimel. And Gimel is the letter that represents a foot or a camel. So it's about stepping forward. You can see it looks a little bit like a boot. And we're stepping forward, and this is the fear. How do we step forward after this beginning at the Aleph into the next thing. The Gimel is the number 3, and it's got this sort of tripod stability to it, but it is about moving ahead. And some say that it's about running forward toward justice in particular, because it rules over, in the Sefer Yetzirah, it rules over the planet Jupiter in the sky. And the planet Jupiter in Hebrew is called Tzedek, which means justice. So, and it's also the largest planet, of course. Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. So we are moving toward something big. We're moving toward big justice here. And it's a little bit scary. It's a little bit intimidating to step forward in that direction. And we have a little bit of fear around that. And it's a challenge. So as we step forward from this Aleph place, this decision, where we're at a place where we're making a decision here, at the crossroads, and then we step off. And that first step is hard. It's a fear. And I think that seems right, because again, we have to discern whether it's time to attack, whether it's time to retreat, whether it's time to cross that boundary, whether we can use what is considered normal for some spectacular purpose, like art. And then we still have to make that first step. We are the ones who have to make the choice. We are the ones who have to decide and then step. And our advice or outcome here is the letter Yud. And I love this because the letter Yud is the first, it's the first dot that is used. And you can see in each of the letters there are Yuds. There's a Yud in every single letter because it's the first place you put your pen down, or your stylus, or your quill. So if you were writing with this porcupine quill, if you were carving into a piece of clay or wax, the first letter you'd make would be Yud. So it's about making a mark. It's about planting a seed. And Yud is the letter that's affiliated with the month of Elul. So it's a perfect letter for the outcome here, because it's saying, plant that seed, make that mark, that this month, that this letter has the potential for everything within it, because it is a seed. If you plant a seed of a fruit tree, that tree bears fruit. Every piece of fruit has multiple seeds in it, and each of those seeds can plant multiple trees. So we have this stepping forward with the Gimel, and planting the seed is the next thing. This is also representative of a sperm, so the potential for life. It's the smallest of all the letters, but it has the potential for everything in it because it's the first mark that you use to create each of the letters. So it has the potential for everything within it. And this month, as we step forward and do the things that we're supposed to do, has the potential for our return, which is a connection with divinity. And of course, Yud is the first letter of the Tetragrammaton, the Yud He Vav He, the divine name. That divine name which is unpronounceable because it is a contraction of the past, present, and future of the verbs to be. The Yud He Vav He. If you take away the Yud from the He Vav He, you get Hoveh, which means to be. But the Yud is this seed that creates this word meaning that which is becoming, constantly becoming. It's the number 10 in Gematria, so it has this sense of the oneness of the divine, but times 10. And so we have the 1 and the 0 here. That 1, which is divinity, and the 0, which is both nothing and everything. So we're stepping forward in this month of Elul with the letter that's affiliated with the month of Elul, planting a seed to give us the potential for anything and everything. And I think this is a beautiful reading for those of you who chose the Porcupine Quill, because it is that tool that can make that one point. It is the tool that can protect us to take something that is mundane and turn it into art, to take something that's private and maybe make it public, like the confessions that we do at high holidays when we give up those things that are no longer serving us. We have to make a decision right now in this beginning part of the month about what direction we're going to go. And then our fear or challenge is, how do we step forward? And the outcome and the advice is to plant one seed. If you just do one thing, if you just plant one seed, the potential is there for the entire olive bed, for an entire tree, for an entire person to be born. So for those of you who chose the Porcupine Quill and subsequently the artist Sophie Kala, this has been your reading for the beginning of the month of Elul as you begin your journey off into return, into teshuvah, into returning to yourself, to returning to connection with divinity, with your own inner divine. This has been your reading, and I hope you enjoyed it. May you have a wonderful journey this month. May you be able to step forward and plant the seed as need be, and I will see you here next time.